tonight, so he'll be a little
This being
patient.
special in so many ways.
Is special.
We even have the press here today.
Woohoo.
Tonight?
With what?
Board.
How are we doing over there? Good?
Yeah, beautiful view of the Sierras.
It's a great picture.
I know. I just want to make sure we can see you all.
While they're dealing with that, can I ask a couple of questions? We have some public comment here that don't say they're here for item 6A. So Elaine, Alan, and Kate, and Cam, and Michael, are you all here for the 6A? Okay, I just didn't want to leave you out if you were here for something different.
Tony, can we fix the background? None. None. We can't see anything. I don't have any.
I'm afraid it's my fault. Where I was all day today, there was the same sort of problem. So I'm going to take it all on my shoulder. There's a,
Thank you, man.
I caused some sort of countywide malfunction of third page.
Well, sure why our video is black. Different camera. Yeah. Got it. Okay. So, that's out of the way.
Hey, we're
Got most of you guys right there.
fine.
Okay.
Good job, Rosie.
Okay, we can.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, yes, I think
Yes.
so.
Okay, roll call.
Okay, Councilmember Freund.
Here.
Councilmember Schwartz is absent. Councilmember Garcia is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Mahoney
President,
and Mayor Cum.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to now have public comment for any items that are not on the agenda. This time it says I received public comment limited to items listed below on the agenda, and that no general public comment on non-agenda items will be permitted.
Yeah, so only things on the agenda.
Oh, only things on the agenda.
except for
Okay,
public.
until we get to the public hearing. Got it. Okay, anyone want to say anything on the agenda that's not public hearing related? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to the consent calendar. Notice to the public, all matters on the consent calendar are considered routine by the city and will be acted on by one motion. Do we have any comments on the consent calendar? Alan's not coming to comment, he's just standing up. Okay. Seeing no comments, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar as is.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Robin, roll call, please.
Councilmember Freund.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahoney.
Yes,
Mayor Cum.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, new business. A memorandum of understanding with the Bishop Employees Association, Management Group, and the Bishop Officers Association. Justin, you want to talk about this?
Sure. Good evening, council. Yeah, this is our routine. Every 3 years, we try to ratify and do contracts with each of the employee groups. As you see before you, we have one from each. And just a basic little synopsis, there's really no major changes to this contract. COLA remains the same based off the cost of living in the San Bernardino, Ontario region. Probably the only, it's not significant in terms of dollars, but we did do a salary adjustment with our communications officers, our dispatch. We do have a problem with recruitment and retention in that particular position. So we just made them basically up to even with what Inyo County pays as well. So hopefully that will help there. The rest of the stuff is we've really moved our bilingual pay to each of our employees associations and not limiting it because it is a great resource to have people that are bilingual. But other than that, there's no major changes for you in this 3-year contract.
Do we have any public comments on new business items? Being done, do you have a question?
I do. And we have clarified with our finance director that the changes there in these MOUs, like the city budget can afford it and everything's.
Absolutely. Actually, our finance director, Ethan Aki, was present with me in all negotiations and we worked together on the numbers and absolutely can afford these changes.
And are the adjustments in these MOUs already included in this year's budget that we approved a few weeks ago?
Yes.
Okay.
We took a gamble that we'd be able to get them passed.
Okay. Anything from you then?
No, no questions. It looks good. Good job.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Any public comment?
I already asked. Do we have a motion? Anybody?
I'll move to accept the memorandum of understanding with the Bishop Employees Association, Mid-Management Group, and Bishop Police Officers Association.
I'll second.
Right, Robin, call for the vote, please.
Okay. Councilmember Floyd,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahovey,
Yes.
Mayor Cohen.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you, council.
Okay, so here we are at agenda item number 6, public hearing and action. We're going to hold a public hearing to consider the appeal submitted by Robert Sharp. So I'd like to open the public hearing at 6:09 p.m. We'd first like to hear from Robert Sharp, the appellant.
Speak loud enough? Can I maybe not? It won't be
Yeah.
loud enough for that, okay. All right, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of some of the residents of East Line Street. Part of this process that was a little bit frustrating to the appellants was the fact that there wasn't clear communication made to those within 300 feet that have, an essential interest, both for property values, their businesses, residences, etc. That was attempted to be corrected by the city with, I will politely say, with mixed reception of whether or not they even received the notices the second time. And then on clarification, as far as the appeal for tonight, it was mentioned with the initial appeal, even the one that was initially rejected, and then the second one, that there was, I filled out the paperwork. That's why my name's on it, because people kind of voted me to do that. But there's other people that wanted to be a part of the appeal, which we were informed tonight. They do not get to speak on behalf of the appeal. They only get to make public comment because I'm the only one named on it. That was not communicated until tonight. That's a clear example of how the public process for us to be able to engage between the private citizens and the government has kind of failed during this time period. And one of the reasons why I'm asking for this appeal to be upheld, at least on a temporary basis, if it were to be sent back to the city for further research and development and representation. As part of that, I wanted to kind of speak a bit about the initial meeting that was had with this. Originally, this was presented in the initial staff report and in some of the prior public meetings as a sports facility, which is actually technically by the downtown plan prohibited. When there was some concern about that brought up, in the second meeting, the city changed the language to sports gym or sports center, making it fit within to those design guidelines. Now, in all admittance, the city has not defined what the difference is between all of those, but we do know from the public hearings that were had that the intention of this is, which is a wonderful idea. I want to make it crystal clear. None of us oppose the business idea. We think it's an absolute essential idea for the climbing community in the area, or, you know, we support the small business. We're just not sure the area that it's being done in is the most appropriate spot. But that being said, one of the things that has been ongoing about this particular project is the fact that it's intended to also kind of essentially be an event center, you know, making it really a sports facility that they're planning on having competitions. And there's been talk about moving, like, if they're doing like, you know, special screenings and things like that, being able to hold special events at the center. And maybe that'll be corrected tonight, but that's my understanding from community impression. And like I said, in some of the public hearings, they stated that, you know, the idea is to really make this a focus for the climbing community, which is a good idea to have such a facility. But when you get into the parking variance, East Line Street, although it's kind of deceptive when you look down on it at times about the availability of parking, half of that's actually red zone. In fact, directly outside of that lot, you can see where the red has actually faded, where it's technically red zoned at 168. And so, and in that same kind of spirit, one of the things that we've expressed as local businesses and residents in the prior meeting was that the city used to actually red zone about 18-24 inches on either side of our driveways to ensure safety for pulling out and whatever other emergency purpose that served. That stopped about 4 years ago. And so those red zones, you can still see where they were, but they're no longer there, which makes it really dangerous when you're backing up and pulling out of the businesses or the private residences on that street. So, you know, one of the things to consider, and one of the strange things in that little block between 175, 168, 162, I think it's 170, Eldridge, is with all that, one of the interesting things is most of the East Line Street is actually controlled by parking signage with limitations as to how long you can park where and when, but directly in the vicinity of the proposed gym or sports facility, it's not. That's where the big gap is. On any given day, there are times that is completely full. And I failed to be able to access a printer before this, but I took some photos about 3 o'clock today, and you could literally see where almost every available parking spot within those few businesses and residences were already filled up. So if there's, you know, a variance for parking, especially if there's special events, there's not going to be a lot for the existing businesses or the existing residences, therefore having a direct impact on the current businesses and landowners in the area. Sorry. I get really nervous public speaking.
Doing fine.
You know, and as I've talked to these gentlemen, like I said, I do support the overall idea. And so I don't want to come across as like, hey, I hate you or anything like that. Because I think it's overall, it's a good idea, but like I said, it's not the right location for various reasons. It's a part of the town's overlay for mixed use. And so this particular property was actually specifically identified during the whole downtown planning for this new downtown improvement plan that was intended to get away from all the zoning variances in the first place and to get away from the hodgepodgeness. The downtown zoning plan is very specific about having to take into consideration the immediate vicinity, the immediate buildings surrounding it, and to basically try to I'm forgetting the word it uses, but basically be sensitive to the existing architecture that's already there and the existing materials. The downtown plan also specifically states that metal is discouraged, but is allowed by permit and permit only. It's actually mentioned two times on the single page of page 65 of the downtown improvement plan. There is a picture of metal specifically with the exact statement permit required, or permit only. Let me correct myself. Permit only. And then within the initial description, it actually says by permit only, and by the city. However, the city appears not to have a permit for metal buildings. So not really sure why, if it's permit only and was adopted by ordinance, why there isn't a permit being discussed as part of the variance. And according to AI, I ran the city guidelines through AI. I don't know if you guys read it. But I ran the city guidelines through AI, uploaded some images, referenced Google Maps. AI did an analysis, and it actually says conditional use permit would be required for metal, based on its analysis. I'm not limited to that. It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
It's been like-
Thank you. I appreciate that, council members. So there's some concern there that we've missed some steps in the planning process and some steps in the initial public hearings to even allow for this. Although we may have, or I should say, planning commission voted to allow for the variance on the parking, which would definitely overload it, especially if there were any kind of special events. But there should have really been some permitting, as a part of that process for the metal structure for the adopted design guidelines and the city ordinance that was adopted around it. That's not there. In the past, what the planning commission allowed for, because this seems to come up every 3 years, and so the residents are kind of like, we thought the design guidelines were supposed to eliminate this from coming up all the time. Is, potentially a metal structure gets proposed there. Last time that was done, one of the things that was brought up is that they would have to observe the residential ordinance, the residential rules for that particular lot. Because basically there's residences close by behind State Farm. There's a big old house, a bunch of people live there. 162 is being developed into professional level apartments, which is a required necessity, for Bishop and part of the mixed use. Across the street are a couple of residences as well. And so in the past, if they were allowed to build, one, they were going to have to observe the residential guidelines for noise ordinances, all that kind of stuff. Two, a bond was required. So in the event of building a metal structure, they required a bond as part of that variance to be able to remove the metal structure. I believe the time was 10 years, but don't hold me to that. It was a number of years that a bond was supposed to be put up to remove it so that in the event, the business didn't remain there within a certain amount of time. The single use or the limited usage of a metal structure there, whether or not it's shipping containers, garages, all that would be allowed. Part of the reason why that was allowed to go through in the past as well is because they were taking advantage of what was going to be the mixed use. So in addition to the retail space that was originally approved for that spot, they were adding housing as an element to all of that to help address the housing issue. So one of the big things that I really think city council needs to consider is if we're making variances and if we're going about making exceptions to our guidelines and our ordinances, it should be to the greater benefit of the greater needs of the community. And this is an essential need of the community, or maybe not an essential need, but it's a great need of the community. But when you look at essential needs and the mixed use overlay, the whole spirit of it, the whole point of it was to encourage, if you're going to be building commercial, you have to follow the guidelines. And if you're not going to follow the guidelines, then here's the things you can do to benefit the community. You can build up and add some residences. You can add some residences somewhere else on the property. You can do things to help improve the overall community and needs of the community. With a lack of taking in consideration the mixed use overlay, I feel like putting a structure there with exceptions kind of violates the whole spirit and the whole point of why city council adopted this in the first place. City council spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on that. Right now, city council of our taxpayer money to develop that plan and to adopt that plan. As far as the parking goes, right now, the city of Bishop is spending tens of thousands of dollars on a parking survey for the 1,300 parking spaces throughout the city of Bishop to figure out the best uses and what's, how things are, and to come up with some ideas and purposes for all those spaces. why not table this decision until we actually have data to make a data-driven decision based on the money that you're spending on our taxpayers' behalf? And realize, see what they say about the parking. Additionally, when it comes to some of the design elements, the way that it's broken down within the downtown plan style, it says the existing style is traditional, eclectic, civic, classical, residential, commercial blend. It says proposed climbing facility would be considered industrial modern, and the conflict would be it's incompatible design guide style wise. Materials in the surrounding area is wood, stucco, shingle, stone, natural landscaping. This proposal includes is primarily metal, requires permit technically, which has not been permitted, and it's visually out of place. Scale. Single story modest human scale are the majority of the surrounding buildings. There's an exception with Masonic Lodge, which is deemed historically accurate, as they would deliberately have made that taller than the existing buildings, as was traditional for it to be a landmark within the area and within the residence, and to be a visual pole, which was common for the time or when it was built. Then the existing 2-story next to it that's being turned into residences, its design, although it's a little disproportionate and it's directly next to the Masonic Lodge, it's actually smaller than the Masonic Lodge, and it actually takes into consideration the other elements, design elements of the area. Eldridge, across the street from it, something I would like to point out about that, when that was remodeled, you'll notice 175 East Line and Eldridge look pretty similar, but you'll notice Eldridge has an extra tall roof, and part of that was deliberately done, because they're hiding garages and storage facilities behind that for their business, a necessary need, but they took into consideration the design elements and the historical elements of East Line Street to come up with that facade and deliberately raise the pitch of the roof in a way to make sure that those things don't stand out. And most people I've talked to had no idea whatsoever that those garages even exist back there. And that was done deliberately to take into consideration the historic style of that particular area. City Council in the past has ruled against metal, has upheld appeals for this property when it comes to metal structures. Specific, they had it for legal reasons, find it's potentially used as the reason they declined it, but the vast majority of the discussion was around the design of and how it impeded what's kind of considered a historical look of Bishop. Most of the housing on East Line Street is 1940s and earlier. Mine is 1920. It's over 100 years old. And a lot of the houses on East Line go that far back. Environmental, outside the scale, environmental fit, potentially disruptive, lacks contextual sensitivity. One thing that somebody pointed out from a safety measure was, I didn't even think about this, but I was talking to a couple women the other day, and they said, if you're walking down there late at night and you allow the parking to be in the front and you shield it with the necessary greenery that's required by the design guidelines, that for them creates a safety issue if it's dark. And they said, that's really easy for somebody to park behind there, jump out, that kind of thing. It was something I never even considered, but it was an interesting point of view that I thought I would go ahead and bring up. Whereas the design guidelines will typically cause the parking to be in the back. And then cultural fit. So all the Google Street Map views and the images basically reflects a local history and character. The proposed facility is generic and utilitarian, was conclusively found to be lacking contextual sensitivity to the surrounding architecture and area. So those are things within the specific design guidelines that the city of Bishop adopted as an official ordinance. And then, of course, I've provided you some images of what was used, as well as keep in mind it went through Google Street View as well. Parking and traffic concerns, like I said, just using today alone, all the available parking within that vicinity was completely taken up. And that's just with the existing businesses there. The existing businesses don't have any variances. So this would also give an advantage to this one property to have a variance. Commissioner Lothrop, past Commissioner Lothrop, he stated specifically in his nay on this particular project that he found that the city and the applicants failed to go through all the specific steps necessary to really declare a hardship. That there was opportunities to work with the property owner next door for an easement, that there was opportunities to further investigate other ways of going about this essentially. And so, in his official day, he basically said, I'll vote yes for this next time, but you need to go do your due diligence and do all your actual work before you come to the planning commission and present your case. And so I think that that's important. Lastly, kind of for the sake of time, because I hate talking for so long, but I'm the only one that gets to talk long other than our applicant friends over here. The other thing I want to kind of point out too is Jack Reynolds has submitted he's a major developer in the city of Bishop. If you're not familiar with that name, he's the one that's going to be doing the 30 apartment units. He's done Valley Health. He's done some apartments on West Line Street. He's really good friends with the developers doing 162 East Line Street, which is next to this parcel. That's going to be residences, probably rented out to hospital workers and healthcare workers and county workers. He submitted a public comment that he was at, I forget the specifics of his public comment, but I know our conversation around this, but he was really, really surprised that the city of Bishop would have even allowed this, knowing the needs of the city and knowing the design guidelines and knowing that, there's apartments going in next door, there's houses behind it, or behind the State Farm, houses across the street. The way he put it in our conversation was, the H word, housing, is king of Bishop. And this is a law that has been specifically discussed by city council, by the planning commission, by all the stakeholders in the downtown development plan as being a very specific ideal example of where the mixed use element should go into play. And therefore, I think that should carry a large weighting with council tonight regarding if you're really going to grant variances and find it to be an acceptable use within the design guidelines. If we upset developers, because here's the side thing is, here you got people wanting to develop those apartments, but now they're really upset about the use of the land next to those apartments. They could very well end up walking away from this, and we're going to lose housing in Bishop. And if they have those kinds of concerns about this development, they may end up with the same concerns behind the bowling alley in the lot that they want to do the 30 units there. So I think it's really, really important to look at the domino effect and to also look at the long-term use of this. When I believe this was in the report, when you look at the long-term use of the residences around it, and I promise I'll make this the last thing. I think this was in it. Oh, here it is. So The cumulative analysis, the proposed two-story structure would dominate the streetscape, which is characterized by single-story human-scaled buildings. This would disrupt the visual rhythm and potentially obstruct views and sunlight for adjacent properties. Although there is the existence of other two-story buildings, the size, shape, and visual dominance are out of sync with the other predominantly existing architecture. So speak referencing the planning gym. Although the Masonic Hall would historically be taller, such a design would be out of sync today, however. The two-story buildings remain consistent with the surrounding architecture, whereas two-story metal structure would be architecturally, materialistically, historically, and sizably inconsistent with the existing environment and guidelines as provided in the building design and character guidelines of downtown Bishop. The use of the metal structure needs to be taken into consideration because all those other surrounding properties, and I guess that wasn't the part, but all those other surrounding properties have essentially the same kind of reusage, small professional offices, residences, and that's about it. You know, there's not, you know, they're kind of traditional 9 to 5 lots and buildings and uses. You add in a structure like this that has garage doors, that has, you know, climbing inside it. Its use with when eventually it gets sold, it gets passed along, whatever happens, you know, they move to a bigger, better location. You have to think of the long-term effect of allowing that, because now what can you do with that? You're essentially, you know, have a garage that's going to be used for storage. It's going to be, which is prohibited technically, but it's a use for it. It could be potentially used as a mechanic shop. It could be, you know, it's got a lot of limited usage that is out of sync with the rest of the surrounding area. And so when you think of, you know, the average lifespan of a business is about 10 to 20 years. You know, you got to think about what's the next step. And if we're going to make exceptions to the design guidelines and we're going to make exceptions to what is going where, then we need to be looking at the long-term and domino effect, which once again, the whole point of the city ordinance that adopted the new design guidelines was to stop the hodgepodging throughout Bishop and to start kind of making homes and not in a sense of like housing, but making surrounding areas kind of the same usage, same design, appreciating the background of the hodgepodge, but stopping the variances going forward, unless it was providing, you know, mixed use overlay or greater good for the community. So I'll leave it at that and open up for questions. If any of the council members.
Reply and then we'll get to questions.
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna allow staff to reply and then to clarify and to say what they want to say, and then we shall go questions back and forth between the two groups.
Okay.
Thanks, Charlotte. All right. So staff, do we have?
Couple things to clarify that all 3 meetings were appropriately noticed, and all residents within actually 500 feet, we picked a wider circle than 300, were notified at least 10 days prior, and all 3 meetings that were held regarding this meeting were also published in your register at least 10 days prior. The evidence to that is a big participation in the meetings. The second thing to clarify is that the fitness club is allowable use, and in the first meeting we used a synonym to fitness, calling it athletic facility. That was changed to provide further clarity.
Anna, can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Where in the Code of Ordinances does it actually say that an athletic facility is prohibited?
It says so in the specific, not athletic facilities, the sports facilities. And then in the specific plan, it lists sports facilities, arenas, and the use listed in line with larger sport facilities.
Okay, Yeah, I was looking at our actual code of ordinances and 17.46.060 with permitted uses, does talk about this fitness centers and even small assembly spaces for less than 500 people. But then in the expressively prohibited, I didn't see anything, related to, arenas and those sorts of things. So,
Yeah, it's listed in the specific plan PDF.
okay, so it's in the specific plan, but it didn't get translated into the code of ordinances.
Yes.
Okay,
All right, continue.
okay, thanks.
And the last thing I wanted to clarify that this project did not request any exceptions from the downtown design guidelines, and the approval for this project and for a metal structure was approved by the planning commission in the last meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have questions for either Anna or Robert or both? You want to start, Dennis?
I just want to ask a question about that last sentence. So if they didn't ask for an exception, how did the exceptions come about?
The applicant asked for exception on the parking requirements, but not the exception of downtown guidelines.
So how'd the metal building it requires a permit how do they get the permit for it? What's the process for that? If you could answer that one, please.
in this case, because the project was going through the planning commission review, the planning commission was the approving body for general look of the building, which is what downtown guidelines require.
Essentially, the approval by the planning commission functions as the permit.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Should probably change the language in our downtown plan to state that, because it sounds really like you need a permit, that it's a special
Something
process,
different.
something different than just coming to the planning commission and saying, hey, here's what we've got, and the planning commission makes it so or not so. You know, I think it would clarify any exceptions that we may get down the road. What happens to the next person with a metal building somewhere in the downtown plan? And we say no. I mean, what's to stop it? Did we like this place better? Did we like them less? Like to me, there has to be some sort of logic behind what we're saying.
Steven, do you have? Or either party?
I mean, it seemed like there was a lot of information that was presented that I would like to, that there was a lot of conjecture and some assumptions were made. And so I'd love to hear from other parties about some of those statements. So,
Before we talk more about it.
yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to public comment now. We already opened the public hearing.
Oh,
Long time ago. Pretty sure I said that. Don't
You
you?
did.
Don't you? All right. So I have yellow slips. I'm gonna go through these first. If you did not get one filled out and you'd like to speak, we can get to you at the end. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I received a text message from somebody that would like me to read a public comment for them if I can fill out a card under ADA. They're unable to make it here for medical reasons.
We all right? Yep.
All right, I'll fill out a card and do it.
No worries. Okay, so let's start with Jane Jackson. First card I have on my list.
Hello.
Somebody had first. Who's ready?
Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm Jane Jackson, President of Bishop. I'd like to urge the city council to reject this appeal and allow Eric and Bud to continue on with the construction of the gym at 168 East Line. I'm married to Eric, so I'm personally invested in this. I've been involved in this project from the sidelines since the beginning. Eric, Bud, and Lauren and I have known each other for over a decade and have all chosen Bishop as our home. We're committed to this place and we want to see Bishop thrive and grow as we continue to establish our lives here. Eric and Bud have taken on this project at great personal risk, investing time and money of their own while they both continue to work their other jobs. They've spent countless hours working with the City Planning Commission, revising their plans to come up with a thoughtful compromise for the parking issue and plan to create an aesthetic, tasteful building that will improve the overall feel of the downtown area. Eric and Bud are committed to this project because they believe in the long-term future of Bishop and want to build a space that will benefit our community for years to come. We would not all still be standing here, though I love these meetings now. If we didn't see overwhelming support for this project through public comments, folks showing up at the last meetings, and the general buzz of excitement felt around town. The best way to support this project is to trust Eric and Bud's vision and let them move forward with a business that is so clearly desired by the majority of the community here in Bishop. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, you can just plop it down there. That'd be pretty. It's okay, Robin.
It'll be fun.
All right, next we have Elaine Cabal.
Good evening, council. I'm Elaine Kabala. I just want to start by saying that I am not here to provide comment on the appeal. I'm here to advocate for a better process. So I'd like to start by thanking the applicants for the work that they have put in through this appeal process in refining their application, doing extra due diligence, particularly in the application that came before the city council, providing enhanced renderings of what the project is going to look like, and providing some visuals of what the community can anticipate it looking like in the future. I also want to thank staff for the extra work that they've had to put into this project to ensure a better process on behalf of the community. And I would like to thank the public for coming and engaging in this process. I really support the climbing gym project. I think that we've seen clear support the community. I'm excited to see this visibility for the climbing community in Bishop. I think this will be a good asset and a good amenity. But I would request that the council develop a better, more transparent and equitable approval process that ensures community engagement for their design review process per this specific plan. Again, I really appreciate the application that was submitted to the city council. And I think it provides a good example of the type of visualization and demonstration of a project that should be presented, particularly for brand new construction in the downtown area, so that the Planning Commission, City Council, and the community have an opportunity to ensure that is consistent with the long-term goals of the community. I just want to take a moment to advocate for the value of a design review process and the role that it plays in downtown revitalization. Having some basic design review standards can enhance the existing character. It will contribute to a vibrant and attractive environment. It helps foster a sense of pride and ownership within the community and within the business community. And it promotes high quality design, encourages pedestrian friendly spaces, and preserves the unique heritage and community and distinct identity of our downtown. Bishop has been lucky that the last few developments have come from developers, such as the development on South Main Street or the one we're discussing this evening, who really are invested in the community and are trying to do a quality project. But there is no insurance that people who are going to come in the future have that same investment in our community. I think metal buildings in particular, this won't be the last time that it's the low cost solution to build something new, but future developers may not have that same interest in providing something that's really quality for our community. And we want to have a process that makes sure that these things that are built have longevity and serve as a long-term asset in building the built environment of Bishop. If I could just have a couple more minutes to wrap up, I'd say that a design review process isn't novel in the Eastern Sierra. Mammoth has one, but Lone Pine also has one. And they have them in place in order to preserve their unique culture, to encourage developers to design the project around the existing community, all things to be able to protect important views and vistas, all things that our community value. So I encourage the council to consider the development of design guidelines and a clear, transparent process that is equitable across project applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Next, we have Marissa Leonard.
Good evening, council members. My name is Marissa Leonard. I live in West Bishop. The appellant raised many concerns in regards to a lack of clarity in the due process that has marked this project thus far. And I'm here to point out yet another critical procedural issue. Before I begin, I want to make it abundantly clear that I have no opposition to the project itself at this time. I'm here to ensure that the city follows a transparent and legal process with any project that it will consider. On June 24th, I filed a formal notice of CEQA violation with the city. That objection is now part of the administrative record, and the city cannot move forward with any component of this project without formally responding. This project does not qualify for a Class 32 exemption, and the city is out of compliance with CEQA law. In the agenda for this evening, this exemption is incorrectly tied to CEQA section 15032. The correct citation for infill development projects is section 15332. You could say that this is just a simple typo. However, a improper citation used to justify exemption status in the public agenda reveals the broader pattern in which city staff members are failing to double check their work with the reality of CEQA law. If staff cannot correctly cite CEQA, they should not be applying exemptions under incorrect citations. This pattern continues as the city appears to fundamentally misunderstand the law. A Class 32 infill exemption requires a project to be in full compliance with zoning and general plan standards with absolutely no exceptions. Whether or not this variance is approved in the future, the very need for this discussion disqualifies this project from CEQA exemption. There's no ambiguity here. The city may not move forward until this failure is addressed and an initial study is prepared. While the city has a responsibility to hear this appeal, reconsidering this variance without reopening CEQA review is textbook segmentation. The city is violating California Supreme Court precedent, specifically Bozong versus Local Agency Formation Commission, which prohibits splitting a project into components to dodge environmental law. Any approval that is a necessary part of a larger development cannot be reviewed in isolation. This meeting itself constitutes a violation of CEQA standards, as the city is now treating this variance as separate from its ongoing duty to comply with CEQA law. This is unacceptable. The city has been on notice of its non-compliance for 6 days. I have both a stamped copy of the received filing as well as any copies for the council if they would like to read it, if they have not been able to do so. If the council makes any forward movement on this project tonight, while ignoring its CEQA violations, it would be deliberate continued non-compliance with CEQA law. And I would treat that as grounds to file a writ petition with the Inyo County Superior Court. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Michael O'Connor. You're good? Okay, throw this one out. All right, how about Mr. Kilgore?
Our owner of Eldridge Electric, 169 East Line Street, and I'm not here for or against. I'm here because I want to get educated. I have not once been informed by the city that any of this was happening. I knew there was a petition going around at one point, and it wasn't until I talked to this gentleman this afternoon that I even found out there was going to be a meeting today regarding this. So to say that everybody's been informed is inaccurate, and we're going to be directly impacted by this one way or another. But I have more questions than anything. What's maximum capacity of the place?
So the purpose of public comment is to address the council, not to gather.
Can you tell me what the maximum capacity might be?
And their purpose is not to answer questions, it's to hear your comments.
So
It's a procedural.
going by maximum capacity, you know, I see it, what I can educate myself on today in about an hour and a half with 8 bike stalls, 1 ADA parking, 3 compact parkings, roughly 16 people. And then possibly, 4 more people, if you allow the parking out on the street. And that is a hazard. I drive in and out of the driveway at work every day, and it's dangerous there. It is dangerous. And I know there was some name changes from a training center to a training/fitness center. I'd like to know what constitutes a fitness center. From what I saw online today, I didn't see any kind of free weights, treadmills, anything like that. I just want to understand how the process can be changed and adopted to fit what might work instead of what was. But any other businesses had these variances that these gentlemen are requesting? I don't know. I would be curious to know. Have any environmental studies impacts been done? I didn't see any of that online. I don't know if I can go research that somewhere and get that information on typical jobs that we do. There's always environmental impact studies done, and that's readily available to the public. I understand that you guys are trying to promote health and well-being, and I think I saw on your thing they were talking about trying to get people to ride bikes and such, and I look outside and there's only 2 bikes. Kind of offsets what they're trying to do. And again, I'm not trying to, just trying to educate myself more on. I see a lot of support here for this. I know it's a big thing. And I wish you guys the best of luck. I just would like to be more informed myself, because I haven't by the city or anybody else. So thank you.
I'm sure regardless of the outcome of this meeting and this hearing, there would be people in this room who would be more than happy to fill you in and answer your questions one way or the other.
I hope so. I hope it comes from the city though, because like I said, we were never informed, and we're right across the street. So
Okay, thank you. All right, next I have Lauren Miller.
Hello, I'm Lauren Miller. I live at 662 Grove, and I co-own the lot at 168 East Line with my husband Bud. First, I wanted to make a few technical notes, but staff has mostly clarified these. First, any comments about use and zoning? This is a fitness center. It has treadmills. It has free weights. The goal is for fitness, and that's a pre-approved use of this lot. And while we've talked in the past about wanting potentially to have 24-hour access, that's not part of the proposal. That will come at a time when we get our business permit. Additionally, there's a lot of confusion about what sort of permit is required for metal siding, but it's definitely not prohibited in the plan. It's listed under one of Bishop's architectural styles. And our understanding is that the city just wanted the right to go case by case and look at each building and decide, does this look like a storage unit essentially, or does it not? And we believe that the commission looked at our design and agreed that this looks nothing like a storage unit. We've added huge windows, a clear entrance, ample landscaping to make the building look as attractive and welcoming as possible. Second, there have been a lot of comments on the history of this lot. And to be clear, in 2018, the conditional use permit was denied based on use because there wasn't design guidelines at the time that could be used. But either way, whether there was or wasn't, it was because this is a C1 designated lot and someone wanted to use it for private, non-retail storage. Third, I would like to also make a note on process. Before our application was submitted, we poured over this downtown plan with city staff, and we believed we were asking for as little as possible to make this project viable. We believe that the Planning Commission has both the right and the responsibility to work with business owners and private landowners to find reasonable accommodations that both uphold the spirit of the plan while also being flexible and acknowledging the limited opportunities for growth in the city. And they did this twice so far. There were more than 60 people here at the last meeting, and more than a dozen comments were made in support online. This is how the civic process works. The community backed us overwhelmingly. I'd also like to say that for anyone who claims that the process has been unfair, I'd like to remind the council The appellant has now known about this appeal for more than 2 weeks longer than we have, while the city figured out whether or not the appeal was even permissible. I'd also like to point out that there was a public comment made under the name of Jack Reynolds that was included in the last agenda that was actually submitted by the appellant, not by Jack Reynolds himself. And while we also have asked for support from our community, those comments were made fairly, transparently, and directly to the city. But most importantly, nothing I believe is more telling of the appellant's true goals than his conclusion in his report that the city should actually rezone our lot as R2 residential. All of this coming from the Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce, whose stated goal is to promote business, tourism, and responsible recreation to benefit our community. So we're not asking you to throw out all the guidelines, let any prospective small business owner do whatever they want, not at all. Today, all we're asking is for you to respect the wisdom and the responsibility of the commission, come to this decision, which they have, because that's their job. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. All right, next I think it says Cam Smith.
Hi. I'm speaking in support of the proposed climbing gym project. This isn't just a new facility, it's part of what we say we want, which is downtown improvement. I think we can all agree on that. That was mentioned earlier tonight. I think we all agree that there are certain spots that need new energy. But that doesn't happen without people like we have here who are willing to put money and time on the line to build things. I want to remind people what we already know, which is we're a town with a high percentage of climbers, and we're a climbing destination town to a large extent. And that attracts skilled professionals, not just athletes, but health workers, engineers, and educators who are drawn here for those reasons. A climbing gym supports that, and it makes Bishop a place people want to stay. I came here because I'm a climber. I'm also an engineer, and a lot of my friends, have moved to Bishop for the same reason. I understand concerns about the process and various things, but do we really want to have empty lots sit unused just because people are afraid of change? In the vast minority, I would say. I'll also say I was like a kid who went to a climbing gym after school from the age of 12 while my parents worked, and it was a safe, positive space for me and for many other kids out there. It still is, and I think that's really valuable in our community. I work, on projects that all have to comply with CEQA, so I'm fairly familiar with it. I don't think anyone here wants to bypass the process, but we shouldn't lose sight of the bigger picture, which is that we're talking about a modest community-oriented project on an empty lot that aligns with the general plan goals, and that the procedural nitpicking that has been brought up feels a bit more, it feels less about environmental stewardship and more about delaying a project that offers public benefit. And I think we should move forward in good faith and let the appropriate agencies handle what they need to handle. And I also I previously was a member of a downtown gym, and I would ride my bike there. So I think to say that that's something that's fiction is also in bad faith. And lastly, I just want to say this project clearly adds value to our community, and I don't think we should let NIMBYism get in the way of moving forward as a community. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you. Right, next I have, Alan Pietrasanta.
Evening. Thank you, Mayor, council members, staff, for the opportunity to speak tonight and all your hard work on this project. I'll begin by saying what I said during the 2 previous Planning Commission meetings on this project. It's exciting that this project has come in front of us to deal with. And I'll cite 3 reasons why. Number 1, true local residents want to invest in our community. Local entrepreneurship is where it's at. Number 2, the city worked diligently to develop and approve a downtown specific plan to offer guidance for our city's future. This is partly a result of that effort. And finally, Bishop's a cool place to live and visit, and as such has drawn this opportunity to our midst. There will be other good opportunities coming along down the line as well. I've seen a lot of demographic change in our community since I moved here in the late 70s. I was drawn here 100% because of the landscape. I was captured by the mountains. In those days, there were very few climbers or backcountry skiers on the east side. About 35 years ago, I remember sitting in a backyard barbecue with my neighbor, talking to some visiting Spanish climbers, whose dream was to come to California with 2 goals in mind. The first goal, to climb El Cap. The second goal, to come and spend time in Bishop, bouldering and sport climbing. They accomplished both goals. Today, our community composition has grown to include many active folks drawn by the landscape in their own ways, like I was. A lot of them are climbers who own homes, who work in who are medical professionals, who are teachers, who are vital employees, who are business owners. All are vital members of our community. Let's stay focused that we're here because of the process. The city has a downtown plan which offers guidance and standards towards what we want Bishop to look and feel like going into the future. I hope the city will refine how it manages the process addressing the downtown specific plan. This specific issue has been a rocky road for sure. Your city council and staff have long said that you support business growth. The Planning Commission twice approved variances for this project, echoing your sentiment. I hope you carry those intentions forward tonight. I request that your council deny this appeal and that all of us do everything we can going forward to create the Bishop that we want. And I'll finish with a quote from a friend of mine about the definition of place. Place. Potent combination of people and the landscape. The elixir is its finest in a reciprocal relationship. When the landscape inspires the people and the people unite in a shared vision of place, community is born. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Robin Stater, please.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak tonight. I am a homeowner on East Line Street at 187 East Line. I also own 186 East Line, which is a vacation rental. And I am a viable, active person in this community. I moved here in 1970. And during that time, I have been involved in business. I have developed businesses. I'm an entrepreneur. I have invested deeply on East Line Street. And I have the Cervante Villa, the Victorian house across the street. And to me, it is very important to, first of all, I'm all for business. Trust me, I'm all for business. But business in the right place. And I believe that East Line Street is a very specific and beautiful neighborhood. It has a lot of nuances to it, which include traffic, include dangerous traffic, actually. I don't know, have you done a traffic study on that property yet? Has there been a traffic study for that property? Okay, good. But I know from my own driveway that it's very, very dangerous. And so the comment about getting in and out of the property and the parking, et cetera, I think is viable. I also know that I have a property up in Mammoth, my commercial building at 550 Old Mammoth Road, which is a 6,000 square foot retail space. And I do know that the building next to it, Distant Brewing, has adversely affected my property value. So although I'm all for business and I think that they're doing a great job, there's a parking problem. So mixing, okay, I have a retail business, they have a retail business. And we're in a downtown area that has a mixed use. It has several residences, but I'm here to tell you that there is adversity in having the wrong mix. And I'm all for your project. I really am. I love activities. I love climbing. I love climbers. Know a lot of climbers, and you know, and I think it's great. But I don't think that that's the right location. And I think taking into consideration that the investments that people have made, particularly like in my home, it's multi-millions of dollars. Across the street is some other big numbers. It affects our neighborhood. So yes, I'm not in my backyard. I'm doing that. Yeah, no, I agree, because I put a lot of money, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and I don't want to devalue my property. And I think that East Line Street is a very, very unique neighborhood, and I think that it should be respected. And I totally 100% support what Robert said, who's my next door neighbor, and agree with everything he said. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Right. Kate Rutherford.
Thank you. Thank you to the City Council for having this very special hearing on behalf of this project. I would like to express my support for the parking variance and the building materials that suit the project. My name is Kate Rutherford. I live at 562 West Elm Street. My husband, Mark, and I walked here tonight along with some of our friends. We own our home and have lived here for 12 years, and I'm here for the natural beauty, the climbing access, and the climbing community. I worked in the outdoor industry for over 20 years as a climber, a builder of quality product, and a community builder. I co-founded Farm to Crag based here in Bishop to inspire climbers to invest in sustainable food systems in rural communities like this to support the environmental health, community health, and individual health. I feel my 12 years in Bishop, aforementioned experience, gives me a deep understanding of our community, the way our town works, and some of the parking, economic, and development challenges we have. I also have a sharp clarity on how this thoughtful growth will benefit Bishop economically and culturally. I've worked with Eric and Bud professionally on many projects, and I know that they are talented craftspeople with art and quality at the center of their lives. This proposed training facility will build community and beautify our downtown business offerings in a wholesome way. It will offset some of the other empty storefronts and draw more investment in our community. There's an abundance of public parking lots nearby, and I believe that most users will ride their bikes or walk. I rent an office 2 blocks or less from the proposed site and will absolutely spend my lunch breaks there. Please stand behind the extensive work that the Planning Commission has already done over the past few hearings to reject this appeal and approve the parking variance and materials best for this project. It is time for this training facility to move forward and grow our small town's capacity to hope our local talent, as well as the world-class climbers that come to invest in downtown Bishop and enjoy this small town with a big backyard.
Right, and last we have April Chris, read by Robert Sharp.
This was received by April Cress and it's being read under 88, so thank you. I feel the community members and business owners most affected by this project did not receive adequate notice about it or the associated meetings. I'm concerned that the parking variance would be granted in an already congested area of Line Street, especially considering the city would likely deny variances to other businesses that do not comply with the original city plan. In addition to the city planning commission not properly notifying residents, it seems the city changed its original stance on classifying this as a facility, classifying this facility as a sports facility, which is specifically prohibited by the downtown ordinance. They then reclassified it as a sports center during the second review. This raises concerns that the city is trying to expedite the approval process instead of allowing for public input. During the second planning commission meeting, it was repeatedly stated that this facility is not just going to be a gym, which is allowed. Rather, the goal is to make it a hub for climbers in the Eastern Sierra. Plans include movie screens from the Bishop Twin Theater to this sports facility, holding large competitions, and hosting various climbing events. This would lead to an increase in the number of vehicles needing parking, particularly for visitors from out of town who cannot bike and are not from the local community. Signed, April Press, 263 East Line Street.
Thank you, Maria.
Can I add that?
Absolutely, please. I was just gonna ask. You don't need to write it down. You're fine.
Okay.
Just say your name, state your name.
I was turned on. Okay, great, thank you. Hi, my name is Melissa Kilgore. I'm a Bishop Paiute tribal member. I've lived here my entire life. And although I know a lot of people appreciate the beautiful backyard, and I think that this gym is better than, pounding rocks into the earth. But I also want to say that, having more respect for the land and learning the history and the culture of the land is also very important. So my public comment is just to hope that the people will be more educated on our area and have respect for it. Recently there was another, the petroglyphs were also vandalized again. And again, pounding rocks into the earth, and just being more educated on all of those things, I think, is what my public comment is. So thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. All right, anyone else in the audience wants to say, yes, please, come on up.
Hi, my name's Raina Aid. I'm a homeowner in Bishop. I spend the rest of my life here because I love it. My comment is, without the recently granted variances, including adequate parking and the use of metal, which is a cheap, sustainable, and accessible material, I'm sure is why they chose it, this business would not thrive. And it's essential that these variances go through for the success of the business for many reasons, some of which include increase in year-round economic activity, use of space that promotes health and wellness for community members and youth, a use of space that promotes community building and togetherness, promotes healthy competition and growth between what's currently the only climbing gym and this proposed gym, increased tourism, and a reason to give people out of town more reason to stay in Bishop and spend their money here. And lots of other great reasons that many people before me have referenced. It appears that a large portion of Mr. Sharp's argument was centered around maintaining a historical and residential aesthetic, as well as some parking concerns. I'd argue that this business's success with the allowed variances is much more important than maintaining a historic and residential aesthetic. Furthermore, peak climbing gym use hours are usually very early morning, early afternoon when it's hottest outside, and late evening, which don't really conflict with typical work or school hours. And the number of cars would be negligible anyway. It seems like a pretty small facility. The area is already mixed use with a variety of buildings, both in nature of business and aesthetic. And this gym won't be the building that tips the scale on matters of aesthetic and land use. Towns do and should grow and change with the times and the needs of the community. And I would like to see Bishop grow and change to support this wonderful business with the variances that they need to be successful, as well as our community that will greatly benefit from the gym.
Thank you. Anyone else? Would you like to speak?
Yeah, so I guess my question before I get up there, so should I be doing this as just a 3-minute public comment, or should you just come up and you guys ask me questions? Just want to know what the.
3-minute public comment would be perfect.
Okay, public comment.
Just introduce yourself in case people don't know.
Yeah, so my name is Bud Miller. Before I get started, I'd just like to apologize. My statement is a little more pointed than has been in the past. We're getting a little on edge here, to be quite frank. So, yeah, so this is now the third public hearing in as many months to talk about this variance, which in its essence comes down to 2 parking spaces and a driveway location. We are here today not because Robert Sharp thinks our intent is wildly out of line with the downtown plan, because it isn't, and not because there is actual concern about people dying because of 2 parking space reduction, which he very literally said in the last planning commission meeting. We're not here because a potentially 24-hour climbing gym will turn Line Street into a homeless encampment. There are already 3 in Bishop, 2 of which are downtown, and certainly not because our proposed use is non-compliant, as is clearly stated as a permitted use. We are here because he does not want a commercial business going in across the street from his house, which, by the way, according to the downtown zoning maps, is in a commercial zone. In his appeal, he writes we are zoned C1, essentially bordering on R2. And when I look at the zoning map, I see that our property is actually blocked on all sides by general commercial lots. Somehow it helps him, the rules must be strictly abided by, but as soon as he doesn't like the current mixed use overlay, he thinks the boundaries should become more of a suggestion. But of even more importance, in his AI generated addendum to his appeal, he writes in his conclusion that what he actually wants is for our lot, which we just purchased as commercial, to be rezoned into R2, which would shut down the ability for ourselves or anyone else to open a business there in the future. Our first variance request was fought hard against by our only true competitors, who publicly disparaged our business plan and acumen and left us in an ugly public confrontation, which we never won. But after putting together a well-researched and in-depth proposal, the planning commission agreed with us and granted our variance. After winning the variance, it was revoked strictly to a glitch in the city's computer system, no fault of our own, and had to repeat the process weeks later. During these weeks, Robert and anyone else who wished to oppose our request had ample time to lobby and make public comments. It was not an unknown event. The sheet had already written about it the first hearing. It was announced, as Donna said, through all the proper channels. Yeah, and now we sit here yet again in front of you all asking not even to grant the variances, but to uphold the decision reached by the planning commission twice previously and put this matter to rest, allowing us to proceed forward with the already extremely hard job of starting a new business in this town. The last thing I would say is that in our current climate, to do something, to build something, to start something is extremely difficult, time-consuming, expensive, and risky. But to stop something, to make it hard for others to achieve, to say not in my backyard, and to stomp out projects in the interest of the self is cheap and easy. Robert's entire initial appeal was 10 sentences, had grammatical errors, non sequitur and improperly informed statements, was on an incorrectly filled out form and turned at the last second it was allowed, and potentially even after that. Weeks later, he went to ChatGPT and had it write a more detailed appeal, again, full of contradictions and an attempt at truly blurring, if not removing, the lines set forth in the downtown plan. Please note the seriousness with which he has given you and the city, planning commission, and ourselves while deliberating on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Going once, going twice. Any more public comments? Right, well, I'm going to formally close the public hearing. And we will talk about it. Do you want to go first, Dan? Or shall I have Steve go first?
My biggest question is really about parking. And it's not based on the quantity of parking spots. Everywhere down East Line, to me, every time I drive down there, there's always somebody that cuts me off, and it is a concern why that it's just for safety. It absolutely is, and I'm sure it is yours too. You're not just going to say, "Hey, I don't care." You have to care. You're risking opening a business. I know the feeling. But like my big concern is all through every proposal let's talk about how people are going to walk and ride their bike, which is great. But what happens when it's freezing outside and people want to go? They're not going to walk or ride their bike. So November through March, you're really it changes the dynamics of who's gonna be coming downtown. And the parking is a concern of mine. I don't know if you guys thought about that, but you know, it's great to have parking spots. It's great to have bicycle parking. But my biggest challenge is the parking, just to be honest with you guys. And I do want to just back up a step and thank everybody for following this process. It is a process. This is the right process, and it's great to live in a town that wants to follow it. The planning commission did their job. We had an appeal. From the appeal that comes to us, it's absolutely the right thing, and it's the right way to do it. And thank you all for participating in that process.
Stephen.
So to address something there, what are climbers going to do from November to March when it's cold? That's when they go climb. That's when they actually, yeah, sending temps, even though I like to call it freezing. But I do actually want to address some of the concerns that were a couple of things that were kind of brought up. One was about a domino effect, and what can you guys all hear me? Do I need a microphone? Okay. One was about a domino effect, and I am actually concerned about a domino effect in that right now it looks like the city is making it really hard for people to start new businesses. If every time somebody has to start a new business, they have to go through the planning commission once or twice, and then end up going through like the this process here. I mean, that is one of the bigger concerns that I have when it comes to like a domino effect. I do not want, I mean, I think the last time this council overturned a planning commission decision was about a pylon on Grocery Outlet. And it was done in a spirit of supporting businesses, because our council does support local businesses, especially people who are starting things out. And I would hate to see that perception of our council change. But I think what we're talking about here, there are three items in the appeal that we need to discuss. One is the sheer number of parking spots, where this project is asking for a two spot variance. I have been around through other discussions in the planning commission of what could happen at this property. And one of the proposals, and I'm glad somebody corrected it, one of the proposals was for personal storage, a big metal building for personal storage. And that got shut down because it's not a permitted use of the area. Then when that individual was selling the property, there were two proposals that actually came up to the planning commission. One was for, I believe, 5 or 6 units of housing. And the reason that was coming to the planning commission is because they needed a parking variance because they weren't going to be able to put enough, like the required number of parking spots on that property. And I think when it comes to parking in particular, like from the moment I got on this council, people have always come to me and been like, we have a parking problem, we have a parking problem. And my question has always been, in the last year, how many times have you had to drive around for 5 minutes or more trying to find a spot? And the answer has always been 0. So we don't really have a parking problem, and the preliminary data that we are getting from the parking study are showing that.
I actually had to do it once.
Was it on mule days?
No, it wasn't.
And what we do have is more of a like walking problem. And so I'm not really concerned about the parking variance, to be honest. Then the other side of it was about the downtown specific plan and the materials that the building's being made of. And there's a lot of talk about like the spirit of the downtown specific plan, as if this is something that was passed like 10,000 years or 100 years ago, and we don't know what the original people intended. Well, we are the original people who passed this. And I can tell you the spirit of it was, and in particular, I was one of the big ones pushing for no metal buildings, because if you walk down, say, Pine Street, and you just see mini storage, you see auto body shop, you see the Coke distributor, those are metal buildings that look cheap. And that is not the view that we want in our downtown. We want to kind of limit buildings looking cheap and not being very inviting, because that's not what actually will promote business in town. And since then, like, there have been a lot of improvements done with metal buildings. In fact, like, there's a house just on Sneeden, a couple blocks away, that was made entirely of metal that actually looks really cool. And so when done properly, I am not concerned about that. And that's why we have it as a permit, where you submit your application and you submit your drawings, and that the planning department has a look at it to decide whether or not it falls in the spirit of the downtown specific plan of not having things look like crap. And so, I mean, those are just some of my thoughts to start out with.
Okay. I will try not to use the word crap. All right.
I censor myself and say crap.
Okay. So there's a couple things that I want to address. My gut feeling is, if, as far as parking is concerned, is if they were asking for, to change it from 10 to 5, I'd be like, that seems like too much. 10 to 8 doesn't sound like that big of a deal to me. I will say that I've heard over and over again, not just from Robert, but some other people, because I live off of East Line, about the red zone issue. So maybe we should take that up at a different time. The idea of around driveways, and when we did it and why we didn't just have a discussion about it. I guess my other point that I really want to make is the idea of the comments around housing. I don't climb, not that you couldn't have told that already. I don't climb, so would I prefer this building be, a Nordstrom rack or a roller skating rink or something else? Of course, right? As the city council, we don't get to make those choices. We get to look at the design and all of the other pieces of it to see if it qualifies and it feels right for our town. If I could force everyone with a vacant lot to build housing, I would do it, but that's not within our purview to do. And so I think that's an issue that needs to be set aside completely. As far as the rest of it, I agree with Stephen. There are metal buildings that look cheap, like the storage shed in my backyard, and there are metal buildings that look lovely. And nothing about the pictures or the discussion, either at the planning commission or at this meeting, gives me the indication that this will be a metal building that is not lovely. In addition to that, we could have, as a council, cut metal out altogether out of the plan. We did not. And we didn't for this reason, so that we could have some wiggle room with what's going on and make it be and feel right to us. Those are really my bigger points. I agree with Stephen that the parking survey is not necessarily showing that we need parking. I know that that's going to be very controversial when it comes out finally, but everything we've looked at is not really showing that. And as someone who walks up and down East Line and Main Street all the time, there are always places. I've never really, and on that stretch right there, seen a lot of space, especially on that side of the street. The other thing that I think we're forgetting is the other plan that the planning commission did approve were actually metal buildings.
They were. They were gonna
there
be
was,
made with storage containers.
they were gonna be made with storage containers. They were gonna be a off-road vehicle rental place, right? And the planning commission did approve it, did say it was okay. And the same comment about metal buildings came up in that discussion as well. And so I think that this one issue as far as metal buildings really comes down to how do they present the building looking? And with the parking in the front and that lovely green fence wall and the wall on the other side to block off that area over there at State Farm, I think it's gonna be a very nice addition. Always better than if you lot. So, what do we think, guys? Do we want to discuss more? Do we have motions? What are you thinking, mister? You?
What am I thinking?
What are you thinking?
I've been thinking a lot about this.
Okay.
I lost some sleep over it, but again, I didn't have a problem and I don't have a problem, just to be clear with it being metal. My problem is the way everything's been worded and trying to understand what all that means. That's my problem.
Okay.
And it's been clarified today. I understand that a little bit better, but I still would like to visit that later. And I just know if I was there and I was driving, my truck wouldn't fit anywhere in that parking lot. I was telling Destin about that, but I drive a big truck and I'm not your customer, unfortunately. Whichever way you want to lean, you know, I could be, but yeah, roller skating, no, I'm not roller skating. You know, the reduction and getting another compact spot, you know, most climbers that I see are very conscious about what they're driving and their cars are going to fit in it. Again, I'm just having an issue with the parking on the street because the times that I've been down there, I haven't been able to find a spot. And we were actually looking at the house a couple places down. It's they're moving it from business to residential, and I had to park 200 yards down, and it was at 8 o'clock in the morning. There were no parking spots. That's just my experience with it. But you know, overall, I do think it'd be a good business.
I will say this, as somebody who frequents the current climbing gym, and I live on the other side of town, like I'm one of the two bikes that you probably saw out there. And
Even talking about parking because you always drive.
I know. And I will say that I always have to lock my bike up to a street post that is there, a sign that is there, and I am usually not the only bike that's locked up to it. And so I do appreciate that there would be a designated spot for that. And especially, yeah, with the popularity of e-bikes going up, I would not be surprised if you didn't see a lot of other people at least biking to this facility. So, I mean, I'm happy to make a motion.
The one question I have for you in the comment on your report was dated 5/28. There's a sentence that you used that it states this building would contribute to the eclectic streetscape while maintaining human scale proportions consistent with its content. I agree with it from a scale perspective, but why did you use the word eclectic? Just curious.
The word eclectic I use to describe I'll use another word that is similar word, collage or variety of styles that are present on that street. So there's pretty much every style of architecture that is present on that street, including similar style of apartment building at the end of Line Street. So using that word, I was trying to describe that there is no one cohesive style on this street.
Okay. Yeah, my concern with that word is I think if it was anywhere else on the street, it would be an issue, but based on where it is next to the two-story apartment, you already have height, then it's kind of, again, I think the scale proportion is fine and it's accurate there. If the lot was two more east, it'd be a totally different conversation.
Two more east. Well, that's
It's the
interesting,
house,
right?
but yeah, the bigger house.
Well, but that's a commercial, that's a hotel. That's not actually a residence.
It's a hotel.
No, I was just
That's a
saying
hotel.
two to the east as an example.
Yes.
I wasn't specifically talking about that building. This
Yeah.
east.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a good call out about the eclectic feel of that particular block. Because if you look at that particular block and you start from Lime Street and you go all the way to Sneeden, currently there are only 2 residences that are occupied on that whole block.
Except for the ones behind State Farm.
Yeah, there's additional housing.
There's just housing behind State Farm.
Yeah.
Uh,
And so I think to claim that that block is a residential block is a pretty big stretch. And especially when the majority of the buildings are commercial there. And there isn't a single unified style. I mean, you have your Mediterranean house, your Victorian house, your craftsman home, the Masonic temple. It is kind of a mishmash. And I would say, like, the last time that the city tried to impose, like, everything must be of this particular style, we ended up with all of these Western facades, which are now going down. So I don't think it's the place of the city to be enforcing something like that. I also, to your point, like, I don't think it is the place of the city to decide, like, what is going in on individual lots and what businesses are allowed or not allowed to come into town. I mean, if that were in our purview, there are a few changes that I'd love to make for sure. But that's I don't see our council as, like, being in that role at this time.
Sure, I agree.
Well,
Do we have?
I mean, I'm happy to make a motion to reject this appeal.
Second. I will second that. Robin, we have a motion and a second. Call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Foyt,
My commentary before I say yes or no would just be, I mean, there's been a lot of good points tonight. While there are negative and positive to it, I'm going to agree and should not uphold the appeal.
So you reject the appeal.
reject
So
it.
that's a yes.
Say yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahoney,
Yes.
Mayor Con.
Yes.
The motion passes 3-0.
Okay, and on that note, we will adjourn this meeting until Monday, July 28th at our regular meeting. You're all welcome.
I didn't find the typo anywhere. I didn't find the typo. But-
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.